What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and this is Philly the podcast. So now, as you can see, we have a very special guest. I had to go get a member of the enemy, right? We had to go get some intel from the enemy. So I do have Phil Milani on here. How's it going, Phil? How you doing today?
Doing well, man. Hey, thank you for having me on. I feel like I'm kind of part of the podcast with my name being Phil. So
there you go. Yeah, you're part of the Philly. There we go. I like that. I didn't even think of that. That's hilarious. So I know you're busy, man. We'll hop right into this, man. I know the Broncos are now 5-4, coming off a big win against, thank you, I must say, the Cowboys. And I know Philly's very happy about that. But from your perspective, how do you feel about this Broncos team thus far?
It's sort of a weird season, to be honest with you. The Broncos jumped right out of the gate. They won their first 3 games. Then they lost 4 in a row. And then now they've won 2 in a row here. And this is a big game for the Broncos because coming off of a game against the Cowboys, they were not expected to win. The feeling around here really positive this week. But that could all go away if they lose to the Eagles. And that would linger around because the Broncos have their bye week coming up. So a lot of pressure on the Broncos this week to try and get a win here. That would make it 3 in a row, and then they would be feeling pretty good heading into their bye week.
Definitely. And as you said, you guys went from, starting off hot, then a little bit cold, and I feel like a seat went along with that, right? So I want to talk about Vic real quick. Vic Fangio, I feel like went from, looking good to a hot seat to right now he's probably in a little bit more of a comfortable seating. But what do you think his messaging is going to be to the Denver Broncos going into this Sunday game to try and get that 3rd win in a row?
Yeah, it's been an interesting season for him because, of course, the Broncos started the year with this quarterback competition between Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. And a lot of people think that the Broncos went with Teddy just because he gave the Broncos the best chance to win right off the bat here this season. And, Vic Fangio's in his 3rd year, and there is pressure for him to win games here. And the Broncos sitting at 5-4. They haven't been 5-4, in a long time. So actually being in this position feels pretty good. I think it's been maybe 4 years since the Broncos have been in this spot. So they're still right in the thick of things here in the AFC. And I think his messaging this week is just, hey, if we want to be the team that we want to be, you got to bring it every week, no matter who the opponent is. And, when the Broncos traded Von Miller last week, I think that sort of rallied the team a little bit, and they really played their best football against the Cowboys last week. So I think they're hoping maybe they turned the page and that Cowboys game wasn't just a one-off. They want to be able to play to that standard every week, and I think that's got to be his message this week.
Definitely. Now, you brought it up, losing basically the face of your franchise. I know that you guys went on the road, so it might have been a little bit different. You didn't really necessarily see the team during the game. But how has the locker room felt? Has there been a change in that locker room? Has there been a new leader emerging at all?
It was weird that Monday when the trade news first was breaking. Vaughn has been a huge member of not just the Broncos, the team, but also this Denver community here. He started his foundation, Vaughn's Vision. He was giving out glasses to kids. Like, he was a major part of this community here. So him leaving, I think that there was a little bit of shock, at first, like, whoa, like, what's going on here? Like, why is he not going to be here? And then a little bit of sadness. I think you just think back to some of the memories and, obviously winning Super Bowl 50, he was a Super Bowl MVP. And then I think the next day you started to think about the future. You started thinking, okay, maybe this trade makes sense for the Broncos long term. They were able to get a 2nd and a 3rd round pick from the Rams. And then as far as the locker room, I think that the messaging from the Broncos executives and also Vic Fangio was, look, we traded Von Miller, but we're not giving up on this season. We still feel like we can win this season. So that was the messaging to the team. And in terms of a new leader, I think Justin Simmons is probably the leader of this Broncos defense right now. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I'd say it's Teddy Bridgewater. Those 2 guys really are sort of the backbone of this team. And for the defense, you saw Justin Simmons really embrace that leadership role. He played really well against the Cowboys. On the Cowboys' first series against the Broncos last week, they went for it on 4th and 1. Simmons blew up the play. He was in the backfield and he was fired up. He got the guys energized. And I think that this Broncos team, even though without Von Miller, still feels like they can win. Von missed all last season with a foot injury. And then he had missed a couple of games here for the Broncos, or I think he missed one and a half games for the Broncos with the injury this season. And they've still been able to get pressure on the quarterback. So I think that they miss Von, the person, and like the what he meant to the community and everything. But football wise, I think they've turned the page and they're moving forward.
That's awesome. And I had your friend, or your cohort, I should say, Eric Dalala on here. And I told him I was from Colorado, not from, but I lived in Colorado for about a year and some change in Morrison. So it's crazy to see, I saw all the posters of Von. It felt like Von was the mayor of Denver at that time. Wow. So I know it's a crazy change, but he's not the only person you lost to. The other people that you are losing are to in unfortunate circumstances, right? You guys are pretty banged up right now. There's a lot of injuries out there. Can you just kind of talk to me about some of the key injuries you guys might be facing and some things that may or may not, if they'll affect this Sunday game against the Eagles?
Well, on the defensive side of the ball, we're not sure if Pat Surtain, the Broncos rookie cornerback, if he's going to be able to play. Left that game against the Cowboys, I think, with a knee injury. And if he can't go, the Broncos are going to have to reshuffle some things in that secondary. Kyle Fuller, who played a lot at the nickel position last week, he's going to have to move outside, and they'll sort of have to figure out some things. That Broncos defense is just banged up in general. I mean, they're without their two starting linebackers from week 1 this season. They've had to go out and pick up linebackers elsewhere. So they've sort of pieced that together and feel like they're in an okay spot there. Malik Reed, who is, I think, the Broncos' leading sack. He has the most sacks for the Broncos. I think he returned to practice yesterday. So signs are pointing toward him being able to play, which will be a big deal, especially going against Jalen Hurts, trying to keep him contained in the pocket. They're going to need their pass rushers to be able to do that. And then on the offensive side of the ball, the majority of their injuries are coming up front. And if you're the kind of person who believes that games are won and lost up at the line of scrimmage, that could be a big deal for the Broncos. Garrett Bowles, their starting left tackle, probably not going to play in this one. Graham Glasgow, their starting right guard, he broke his leg against the Cowboys. But they felt good about their backups. So I think the Broncos, while they are banged up, they feel pretty good about their depth at those particular positions. So I think that they feel okay about where they stand injury-wise.
Definitely. All right. Well, I will say, as an Eagles fan, I know we are very hype on our defensive line. So hopefully this is a week that we can probably get them going a little bit. Now, I do want to switch over a little bit to your offense. As you said, you guys were able to put out your best offensive performance of the year, if I'm not mistaken. 30 is the most points you put up this year against the Cowboys. So do you think Vic Fangio and his staff maybe found the sauce for this team? Is this the offense you think that they'll be trying to do moving forward?
Yeah, Broncos offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur, who spent 13 years in Philly, so there's a little bit of a connection there. He was asked about that this week, like, hey, the Broncos had a lot of success running the ball against the Cowboys, 190 yards on the ground. They said, hey, are you going to stick with this personnel groupings? Are you going to try and go with this ground and pound type of game? He just said, it depends every teams try to do different things to you. We saw the Eagles have a pretty good success against the Chargers on the ground, thinking back to a goal line stand there. But Justin Herbert obviously had a lot of success completing a lot of passes. So I do think that for the Broncos, it's going to be a game-by-game basis here on the ways that they're trying to attack opponents. Last week, it was Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Like I mentioned, 190 yards rushing. But I do think that with Teddy Bridgewater, who's in the top 5 in the league in completion percentage, I think if that's how the Eagles want to line up against the Broncos are more than capable of attacking a soft zone and picking up yards through the air that way too. So.
Definitely, and that kind of brings me into the next question perfectly. Actually, Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, look, Teddy, two gloves, or with Teddy one glove. I don't know how many gloves he got on now,
He's
but
wearing two these
te-
days. Yeah.
there we go. So Teddy two gloves. Teddy B has graded out as one of the better quarterbacks in this league. Looking at his completion percentage and just what he's been able to do with you guys. How has that looked? First of all, from a Broncos fan's perspective and someone that reports on the team, and do you think he's somebody that can be here beyond this year for this franchise?
I mean, that's the big question. What the future looks like. We've seen the Broncos general manager George Payton. He's out scouting some of the top quarterbacks at the college level right now. He was at that Pitt UNC game last night. So you see the Broncos still, I think, looking for that franchise quarterback of the long term. And then a lot of people suggested that when they traded Von Miller to pick up some draft assets, maybe they were trying to collect those either to trade up in the draft if they like one of these quarterbacks, or even potentially to trade with another team and pick up a quarterback that way. So I do think that the Broncos right now are at a point here midway through the season to see what Teddy does down the stretch. As far as what Bridgewater's been able to do, he has been everything that the Broncos had hoped that he would be. He's brought a veteran presence to the offensive side. He's been just so level-headed the whole time throughout training camp. He was in this quarterback competition with Drew Lock. He never got too high, never got too low, approached a practice the same way. And he's really carried that over into games. Even last week going into that Cowboys game, he's just so level-headed that I think that it helps this Broncos offense. There's a lot of young players on the Broncos, and to have that guy as a quarterback who's just really consistent, brings it every week, every day, I think he's been huge there. And it's led to production. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater's having a career year right now. I mean, he's not turning the ball over. He's moving the ball down the field. And one of the things I was expecting was a lot of dink and dunk. That's the hysteria, that had been the bill on Teddy Bridgewater. But he's really been more than that. He's gone over the top several times. Last week against the Cowboys, he hooked up with Tim Patrick for a 44-yard touchdown. You couldn't have placed that ball in a better spot. So he's been really impressive. And if the Broncos end up sticking with him for the next several years, I think fans would be okay with that.
Yeah, I think that, if you're old enough to remember, which sounds weird to say, but him coming into the league, his whole story is an awesome story of him just coming back and not giving up. So I definitely root for the guy. Obviously not this Sunday, but I do hope the best for him. Now, I do want to ask, going towards this game, look, neither team is the hallmark of the NFL. Neither team is technically like a Super Bowl favorite, right? But I do feel like there might be some trap game-esque feel here for the Broncos. You guys are going into your bye week, coming off your biggest win of the year. I think that's something that we can all say. Do you have any trepidations going into this game, or do you feel this is a game they'll pack up their lunch box and just get to work?
No, definitely not. I mean, I think that the Broncos are approaching this very serious. I mean, we heard Vic Fangio talk about Jalen Hurts earlier this week, says that he's been really impressed by the young Eagles quarterback, said that he felt like maybe Philadelphia has their franchise guy. That's how impressed he's been. And if you look at the tape, I mean, him and Monte Smith have really built this connection, and you saw him burning Chris Harris Jr. several times last week. So I think that the Broncos are taking this very seriously. The Eagles seem to have found a lot of success running the ball too. I think they ran the ball like 39 times against the Chargers, more than 40 times the week earlier against the Lions. So it seems like they're trying to, attack teams that way now. And, I think the bottom line for the Broncos is that, they're just not good enough to really overlook anybody. Sitting at 5-4, they're happy with where they are. But I think that they're not in a position where they can just line up and expect to win a game here. And even Teddy Bridgewater this week said, the game of football really challenges you every single week. And it challenges you when the Broncos were losing 4 games in a row. Hey, what's your character like? How are you going to respond? But it also challenges you when you're winning too, and say, hey, this Broncos team, they've won 2 games in a row. How are you going to respond now? Are you going to get too high and think that you're really good and not bring it this week? Or are you going to stay the same? And I think the Broncos will not be overlooking the Eagles.
Definitely, definitely. Now, if you look at the Eagles' schedule, this is a definite must-win. If we're looking at the playoffs at all, which I know the fan base is kind of split on that. Looking at your division, you guys are very, very tight. It's a very tight race. I think it's within 1 game of everybody, right? You guys are in 4th place, but 1 game behind first. So, do you feel this is a must-win game for the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially coming off that Cowboys win, if you want to feel good about where things are heading, you got to be able to beat this if you're beat the Eagles if you're the Broncos this week. And after the bye, the Broncos have a lot of division games, and ultimately the success for the Broncos this year is going to be decided after the bye. But this AFC West is pretty difficult. I mean, the Chiefs have not started the season looking like the Chiefs we've seen from the past couple of years. But there's this sense that, look, these guys are still really talented. They're going to figure it out. It feels like that. And then, so the Broncos have 2 games against Kansas City coming up. They have 2 games against the Chargers. And as you guys found out last week, Justin Herbert, he's the real deal. I mean, just playing in his 2nd year, I mean, he is really talented. So the Broncos that's 4 tough division games coming up. And then they already lost to the Raiders. And seems like Derek Carr and company have really weathered that storm with John Gruden leaving and then all the Henry Ruggs stuff. So it seems like there's something every week going on with the Raiders, but somehow they've been able to win a lot of games so far. So for the Broncos, if they want to make the playoffs, games against teams like Philadelphia, they have to be must wins because the schedule is going to be very difficult here coming up after the bye.
Definitely. Now, you guys have ran the gambit of the NFC East. If you beat us, you have beaten every NFC East team. We are the exact opposite. We have not helped you at all. So I do apologize about that. But, you're looking at this team, obviously, like we keep saying, your offense has showed up. Your offense did very well, but I still feel like your defense is what you make your money off of, right? And looking at your defense, I want to ask you, maybe I shouldn't ask you this. Maybe you might get in trouble for giving me too much information here. But if you're looking and you're the Eagles offense, how would you attack this young Denver defense?
So the area the Broncos have had a lot of difficulty with defending are it had been 1 week running the ball, like the Browns really just pounded the ball against the Broncos. They were able to rack up a lot of yards that way. So then it seemed like the Broncos corrected that. Earlier in the year, though, teams were beating the Broncos over the top. I think back to the Ravens game, and Lamar Jackson threw for more than 300 yards. He was on fire. Derek Carr was able to beat the Broncos over the top. So it seemed like the Broncos then corrected that. And then last week against the Cowboys, they played their best game of the year. They were able to really shut down Ezekiel Elliott. They were able to hold Amari Cooper in check, CeeDee Lamb, like Dak Prescott never got going. So it seems like areas that the Broncos have struggled in earlier in the year, they've been able to get those things corrected from a scheme standpoint. I will say one area that they continue to struggle is crossing routes over the middle that really have challenged their linebackers, especially in zone defense. They've had trouble picking up faster wide receivers running across the middle of the field. Teams have been able to attack the linebackers and then pick up a lot of yards after the catch. But the Broncos went out and got Kenny Young, the starting linebacker from the Rams, a few weeks ago, and he's really just been inserted into this lineup and been an instant boost. So we'll have to see if that's still an issue for the Broncos moving forward. But I think that anytime you have a player as talented as Devontae Smith, you just got to know he's going to get his. He's going to make a couple of plays that even if you're in the perfect defense, he's going to be able to make your plays. I think the big thing is just not letting him kill you.
Definitely. I must say, as an Eagles fan, it feels so good to finally hear people talking about our wide receivers. We've went through some tough ones, so it's an awesome thing. Now, I got to ask you. This is the last question I have for you. I feel like it's contractually obligated of everybody to ask this. What is your prediction for this Sunday? Do you think that the Broncos come out with the win? And are there any underrated players that you got your eyes on for this Sunday?
One player for the Broncos has been underrated, I think, in terms of his name in the NFL. Like, I don't think that he's definitely not a household name, and I don't think enough people in the media are really talking about him. But Tim Patrick has been outstanding for 2 years in a row now. Last year was sort of his breakout year where you should know him if you're playing him, and then this year he's really followed that up, and he's brought it every single week. So the Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick, number 81, he's a name I think that Eagles fans should get to know. I mean, he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year, and here in Denver, a lot of people are saying, "Look, it's time to sign this guy to an extension because he's really been a surprise the last couple of years." Thinking about the Philly game here, a couple of years ago, the Broncos went to Philadelphia, played the Eagles. That was the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and they ran out of fireworks in that game.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz and company were rolling. Jay Ajayi had a long touchdown in that game, and they just knocked the socks off the Broncos. So not a lot of players on either team still around, but fans definitely remember that game. So with that in the back of my mind, I feel like the Broncos get this one done. I do think that at least on paper, seems like they've got a little bit more talent at this point. So I say Broncos 31, but I'm still afraid of Jalen Hurts, man. When I see this kid out there, I really think he's talented. He can run the ball. He's really got a strong arm, and I think that the future is really bright with Philly. So I think they're actually able to score about 24. So I say it's a one-score game late in the game, and a couple plays here or there are really going to determine things. So, but I think the Broncos get it done. 31-24 is what I say.
Definitely. That's not too bad. I'll take that. Now, like I said, we haven't helped you all year, but you guys have continued to help us with our division race. So hopefully you help us a little bit more this Sunday, maybe give us a little win, and, you have a great season beyond that. But Phil, I appreciate you coming on here so much, man. This was a lot of fun. And please, before you go, please let them know where they can find your work and just who you are.
So all my work appears on all the Broncos social media pages, at Broncos on Twitter, Broncos Facebook page, and then also the Broncos official YouTube page. And then you can find me directly, as you see on the screen there, at Phil Milani on Twitter. Thanks, man. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
It was my pleasure, man. So I appreciate it, and good luck this Sunday. And I appreciate everybody that is tuned in. Be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe. Go check out all his work. They do some amazing work. But other than that, man, y'all know what it is. It is Fly Eagles Fly, and we are out of here. Peace. All right.